This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth. And in case you guys didn't know, there is a lot of money moving around in 2021. And this is largely because of a great deal of uncertainty in the world. I mean, we're in the midst of this global, what I would call the COVID 1984 pandemic, but we've also got the Biden administration in the US saying they're going to withdraw troops from Afghanistan by 9/11, but he's also got his eyes set on Syria. So there's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to be happening in 2021, and rightly so. A lot of people are beginning to protect their assets by moving them into safe havens like gold and silver. But some people, believe it or not, have been moving their assets into the cryptocurrency space, in particular things like DogeCoin, which really blows my mind. This is something that's based on a meme. There's literally no fundamentals, no technicals behind it. This is a meme coin. It's spiked up 500% in just the last week, reaching nearly a $50 billion market cap. It's just insane. And I have to wonder if those people actually invested all that money and time and effort into gold, how much better off would they be in the near future? Well, joining me on the line right now to just help us understand the ebb and flows of the gold space in general is Neil Woodyer of Arisgold. Arisgold.com is the website. Sir, thank you so much for joining us here today on Press for Truth. Now I want to talk a little bit about the company and your views on where we're at today in terms of the markets and where you see this going. But before we get into that, maybe we could talk a little bit about this parabolic spike we've seen in the last few days in the cryptocurrency space. Are you familiar with this thing called DogeCoin? That's literally based on a meme. There's no technicals, there's no fundamentals, and people are just pumping their money into this thing right now. What do you make of this, what I would call a very unwise investment, but what do you make of the moves going into things like DogeCoin right now when people should be thinking about gold instead?
It reminds me of a few years ago, the dot-com period, where there was a big balloon and a big bust, and I don't know when it's coming. But you have to invest in real things, not in theoretical things, as far as I'm concerned. And that's why I personally invest in gold rather than something that somebody has made up appropriately at appropriate point of time for whatever reason. So
right.
I keep it simple.
Yeah, well, that's the best thing to do. I think a solid piece of advice to have something that's actually tangible, something you can physically hold in your hand. So let's talk about that. When we do talk about actually investing in something like gold, there's many ways you can go. You can go into the precious metals. You can go into the mining stocks. So what do you think is a good way for people to diversify when they're looking to protect their assets into gold?
I think what you should do is be diverse as possible. If you are into gold, gold gives you a number of medium. Certainly, owning physical gold is a long term. Put the money aside, keep it there. I own some physical gold. That's where that goes. When you think in terms of where you're trying to make more of a movement, then look at the mining stocks, because the mining stocks not only move with gold, they remove the sensitivity to themselves, and they move dependent upon what operations are doing, how things are going, and how management, very importantly, how management is managing that money in gold. So you get the rising gold price for the investment in gold that you'll get, but in the gold stocks, you can also be more selective and pick the good ones and do it that way and get an even better premium. So I personally do both.
Well, what sort of support do you see for higher gold prices coming? Because 2020 was a good year for precious metals in particular. Silver had a fantastic year. I think 2021 has huge potential for gold. What sort of support do you see is needed for higher prices?
I think you're relying on economic confusion and political incompetence. We're going through a situation the world has never been through before. Some people compare it with the Second World War. I couldn't do that, but certainly it's something we've never experienced before. We've had no experience of how to manage the situation. Money is being pumped to support people, which is obviously a good thing to do. It has to come from somewhere. Money is being talked about in terms of reopening the economies. That's slow, it's staggering, it's not quite as smooth, with a number of waves, a number of curves hitting us. We don't know where this thing is going. The deficits are getting bigger and bigger, the borrowing is getting bigger and bigger. There's only one thing that leads to. That leads to uncertainty and inflation. And those things are very, very good for gold. So the long-term trend through this horrible period of time actually favors gold.
Well, is it possible that some of these things could lead to regulations that may hinder gold, or perhaps will be better for it? Like, what would you say about potential environmental regulations or governmental regulations in the near future? Could that help or hinder gold?
I think the gold industry is steps ahead of where people think it is in terms of environmental sense and common sense and community relations. The industry has done a lousy job, an absolute lousy job of explaining what it's doing and why it's doing it, but it's doing it. It's working with communities. It has to do the social license. It is improving all the time, not only just the economics, but all the environmental sensitive things. Tailings dams are disappearing. We're going to dry stack tailings. All sorts of things are happening. So I think the industry is well ahead of the curve. It's just a question of people understanding that. So all that negativism is behind the times.
Right. Well, you guys seem to have stayed 2 steps ahead of the curve, and that's why I wanted to have you on. Let's talk a little bit about the company Arisgold. You seem to have the trajectory of a tech stock. So how many ounces do you currently are you producing per year, let's say, and what would you hope to see that amount to in the near future?
Okay, well, let me give some background before I explain the answer to that. Aris, actually in Celtic, means again. We're doing it again. Over the last 15 years, we've done this twice before. We built up 2 companies, starting with a small asset, adding assets to it, adding value. Endeavour Mining was our first one in West Africa. We bought 6 mines, we built 2 mines, we sold a couple. We built up a company worth a couple of $1 billion over that period of time. We did the same thing with Leagold when we acquired a mine in Mexico. We started from nothing, we acquired a mine, we doubled the size of the reserve, we expanded it. We did acquisitions in Brazil. We then merged with Equinox in sort of last year. So building up a value of a company is what we're good at. And we've got the management team that did it at Endeavour, went through to Leagold, and have now come through to Aris. So what we're doing is building a diversified gold mining company with the idea is a number of assets, a good portfolio and quality assets, and being very good on things like you say, ESG and compliance and those sorts of things. But you have to start somewhere. You start with a clean slate, you start somewhere. We saw the opportunity to start with the Marmato mine in Colombia, which was a small mine, historically producing only 25,000 ounces a year since 1990. But the people who were managing it before had identified a very large underground reserve below it, 2 million ounces, 6 million ounces resource. They'd done a feasibility study. They'd raised a large amount of money to get it going. They hadn't quite raised enough. So we stepped in, raised the balance, and we raised 85 million Canadian. 35 came from the team that put it in. We put this together. We took over control 9 weeks ago. So we have a little operating mine, historical mine, but we now have the ability to build a 200,000 ounce mine below that. That will take us a couple of years to do. As we do that, we will be looking for other mines and assets to acquire to build that diversified intermediate mining company. That's our strategy. That's what we're doing. Deliberately, it's called Aris. We're doing it again.
Well, as I understand it, that was originally at around 25,000 ounces per year, and now you're going to 200. That's I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I went to the public indoctrination centers for schools, but we're talking 600 or 700% increase, isn't it?
It is, but that's our start. Okay, what we're trying to do is get to a mining company which is producing 4 or 5 times that amount of gold in a relatively short period of time. We did that in Endeavour. Endeavour is now the largest West African mining company. We did that with Leagold. We add resource, and the market values a single entity in a certain way. It values a larger company in a different way. You get a much better multiple. If you add 1 on 1 in terms of mines and you add 5 mines, you've actually generated 8 mines of value. It really is a 1 on 1 equals 3 business. If you can manage it, you can get the complementary assets and you have the team who can manage it. We've done that and we're going to do it again. That's essentially our story.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that team that is managing this. As I understand it, you have a lot of people who are coming from rather large previous successes. Who are some of these key individuals that you're involved with, and what are their roles?
Well, we've taken the management team, as I said, that came from Endeavour, the operating guys, the corporate finance guys that have worked together and have done these implementations and carried out these transactions. This time, we put them under a board of heavyweight industry leaders. I was about to call them veterans, but most of them are younger than me, so I really can't use that term. But heavyweight leaders, we take, for instance, our chairman, Ian Telfer. He started Wheaton River, Wheaton Precious Metals. Wheaton River became Gold Corp. He was chairman of Gold Corp. We have David Garofalo, who was the chief executive of Gold Corp. Before that, he was chief executive of Hudbay. Peter Maroney, another entrepreneur in mining, another senior mining executive. He started in 2003, Yamana Gold. So we've got these seasoned professionals who have created huge companies themselves and managed huge companies as our board, because it gives us a good check and balance, and it gives us a good entree to situations, and it also gives us a very, very unique access to the capital markets for expansion. We've also kept on Serafino Giacono, who was chairman of the board when we took over the management of the company. We have the ex-Minister of Mines of Colombia as a director. So we brought together a group of people who can work together and who can relate to what we're doing and who themselves have done it before. Tremendous value.
Wow. Yeah, tremendous team. I'm sure that they have a vision for the future for the company. What would you say collectively everyone there on the team has hopes for in, let's say, 2 to 4 years from now?
Okay, well, I think the first thing to say is that a number of members of the team have known each other. I've known Ian Telfer for 30 years, and I've known Fino for 30 years, and that sort of thing. And we've worked together in various ways. And Frank Hughes is a very big supporter, and he's our strategic advisor. And Frank and I have been partners for many years. So we all know each other. We've been in deals together and done that. What is important about this one is we've come together to make this work. And the team, board and management, have invested about 35 million of their own money in the deal. So we own 8.5%. So we're putting our money where our mouth is, and we believe in what we're doing. So it's a crystallization of relationships, it's a crystallization of experience, and a crystallization of commitment to build this company. And we are totally aligned with the shareholders' interests because we are shareholders.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it sounds like just all things have kind of come together at all the right times and the right places. That's fantastic. Over the history of doing so, what sort of catalysts have you had that have proven to be successful for the company?
Oh, I think what we've done in terms of our operating companies, our two companies, has been very clear and straightforward. We devise our plan. It's simple, it's direct. We execute it in a very simple and direct way. We make sure that the operating people operate their own the mines. We set up parameters, we set up guidelines, we set up authority levels, we monitor it. But the corporate team, which we keep small because we don't want bloody great overhead, we keep small, is there to look at the next transaction and to build a business that way. We don't have hierarchical structures, we're very flat-lined, we expect people to make the decisions, we give them the authority and responsibility to do it. So we're a very entrepreneurial team, and that's the way that Telfer built up Wheaton River, and that's the way Peter Maroney built up Yamana, doing those things, and that's exactly what we're doing, and doing it in that kind of way.
Fantastic. This is why I wanted to bring people like you on, especially in the midst of people just dumping their money into things like DogeCoin, which had no fundamentals, no technicals behind it. Really just kind of
driven by hype,
right?
You got to gamble occasionally.
Yeah, I suppose.
A serious investment, and don't do that.
If you can afford to.
Yes. Right.
Unfortunately, the sad part is people are, watching a tweet from Elon Musk and pumping their life savings into something that's based on a meme. When if they had done that with gold, they'd be far, far better off in the near and far future, for sure. I agree that it's a fantastic store of wealth, essentially.
Follow experience. Follow people who are doing the same thing. Follow people who are committed. That's got to be one of the most sensible things to do as an investor. Yeah,
exactly. And you guys have a proven track record. So if people do want to get invested with you, want to learn more from you guys, where should they be looking to online? Where's the best place for them to go right now?
The best place is our website, arisgold.com, www.arisgold. Everything is there about us individually. Everything is there about our own investments. Everything is there about the company, its planned. Everything is there from a compliance and diligence point of view. We wrote out complete new policies for the company when we took it. We had them in place day one. We only took the company, management of the company, over 9 weeks ago. So it's a very new situation. And that, I think, is reflected the fact that it's not out there in the market what we're doing, which is why we need to look much more liquidity and better stock price, which will come when people understand what we're doing. So we made sure we're operating, because we have people who run major companies to the same standards of compliance and ESG that they had at their major corporations applied to our little corporation, but our growing corporation. So that's the way we've done it. So arisgold.com will give you all the information.
Fantastic. Sounds to me like a good time to get involved, and a safe company to get involved with, especially if you're considering getting into the DogeCoin. Maybe you ought to look into something in a company who, has that proven track record and is actually a safe haven for you to move your assets into. Strongly recommend you to check the links in the description below. Once again, Neil, thanks so much for talking to us today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
We all want truth. The truth will set you free.